Welcome back to Meet the Coach today. Excuse me. We've got Coach Jess Loepp. He is the defensive coordinator at UTSA. Coach, I appreciate you joining me. Of
You bet, man. Glad to be on for sure.
course, we are 5 and change weeks away from football season. Well, I should say official football season starting. We've got
That's
camp
right.
here in 10 days. But talk to us about, let's start with the offseason for you. You've been there a handful of years now as coordinator, last couple. What have you changed this offseason, or what has your focus been? And I'm not talking scheme, but like from a philosophy standpoint, from a what are you trying to work on this offseason with yourself potentially, and your guys?
You bet, man. Good question. I approach this offseason a little bit differently than I have in the past. I think a couple things in the past, especially with me, I kind of inherited this defense 3 years ago. It's funny. I tell my coaches, I tell a lot of friends all the time. I spent like all the 2-3 years on a playbook. Hey, this is what I'm calling things. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And then all of a sudden, this change happened kind of towards the end of the year, mid-year, and I just inherited a defense. And I'm like, well, I don't want to change anything or call anything any different. This is what our kids know. And so the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time on, really learning the ins and outs of what we do. How can I kind of make some things in my language that we don't do? How can I put some things, a little bit of my philosophy into what our defense? But this year, I kind of focused a little bit as far as schematically is what we are doing and how can I get better as a coordinator in calling a game, or how can I get better as a coordinator to adjust quicker, if that makes any sense. So I really, again, I talked to Coach Hampton about that. That was at Tulane, that's at Oregon now. And he told me that. I said, what do you do in the offseason? He said, man, the best thing I ever did was watch my games over and over and over again. I didn't do it for schematically. I did it for how can I get better as a coordinator. And so that's what I spent a lot of time on this offseason. How can I get better in calling a game and adjusting and seeing what offenses are doing against us?
That seems so simple, right? But you don't hear that. I don't know if I've ever heard that. I just go watch my games and I evaluate myself from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, it was good. I think there were some things that I saw in a particular situations that I think we can get better at. I've talked to a couple of our coaches already, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see some improvement, and hopefully on my part, and then everybody else as well.
Sure. So heading into camp here, how do you prep for camp on your end from a coordinator standpoint, different than when you were a position coach?
Yeah, as a position coach, I felt that you only worry about the safeties. Now, heck, man, it's planning. That's the biggest thing. How are we going to install? What are we going to install versus those first 4 weeks? What are our kids are going to need to see and know really well going into that first week? And again, those first 4. So that's kind of the biggest difference. I've got to have this big view of things, and also make sure our coaches are all on the same page. We got to make sure the playbook stuff, and this is our, for the most part, I'd say all of us have been here 3 years together, some of us 4. We should all know what we're doing, but it's still good to go over and let guys teach their position and teach us what they're doing.
Yeah. How many new guys do you have after spring ball? Do you got a handful of guys, transfers, freshmen?
Player wise,
yeah.
After spring ball, 1.
Okay.
That's
so
it.
Your guys have been around it. Even the new guys after this past season have been around it in spring, at least to be able to get like the basics.
Correct. So we've got basically everybody here, or 2. I'm sorry, I just remembered one more. But heck, then they were here all summer. And nowadays with the rules how they are, we can have the OTAs, and man, those are great. Coach Traylor, he does a great job with us on that, and we're out there teaching a lot of individual and going through our base stuff.
Are you once you go to camp? Are you guys open with Houston September 2nd? Are you a UTSA us guy for a couple of weeks and then start to transfer to Houston, or when do you start to make that move to game planning specifically around them?
We've probably done a little bit of Houston even throughout the summer, but it's very little, just kind of introducing some concepts. So then as we install our coverages, we're not just doing them against random plays. We're actually at least working on some Houston plays, but a majority of it is us. The first week of fall camp, especially, a majority of it will be us, probably the first 2 weeks, but we're always going to sprinkle in some Houston every day.
Sure. Do you So let's transition to the season, and I guess philosophy wise on your end, from a defensive coordinator, from I flipped the tape on, which I will September 2nd, tune into the game. What do you want what do you want people to see? And what do you want your guys from a philosophy standpoint to show up every Saturday on tape?
Yeah, it doesn't change for us. It's been like this for 3 years, and we're going to keep it the fourth year. As the biggest thing is we want to make sure people see how physical we are. That's a big thing with me. Physical toughness is a big culture pillar for us, and when they watch us play, I want to make sure everybody understands that's something those guys will hit you. They will be physical. We might not win, but you're going to know you've been in a battle with us. Second thing is we want guys playing with perfect effort. There's a reason we play over 20 guys every game on defense. This year, we think we're going to play 25 every game on defense. There's a reason. That way our guys stay fresh. If you're not running your butt to the ball, you're off the field. And you're going to get called out in that meeting the next day. So I would rather have a guy tap his hat and sub himself out because he's worn out and get another guy in than us to sub him out because we see that he's not playing with perfect effort. So physical toughness, perfect effort, those are huge things. And the last thing is win the day. That's being assignment sound, making plays. As long as people aren't just running wide open downfield, as long as a running back doesn't just run through a hole and doesn't get touched, you know what? They're on scholarship too. They might make a play on a corner, jump ball. Hey, good job. That's okay. I'm not going to get mad at that. If the running back breaks 5 tackles, okay, we'll work on some things, but I'm not going to, at least we were where we were supposed to be. That's kind of hard to say. And we're doing with perfect effort and physical toughness. So that's what I want to make sure people see us do.
Sure. From a coordinator perspective, what do you think most coordinators overlook, and maybe even you did when you first started coordinating, that you've now narrowed in and focused on, whether it's preseason or during the season, from it just like a general outline standpoint or planning standpoint? You mentioned stuff like that.
Yeah, planning, I would say this. I think when I first started doing it, and I still have some issues now that I have to have coaches reel me in. I always feel like we need more.
Sure.
Because we keep things very simple. And then when we get into the game, I realized, well, shoot, we didn't need more, because it's all about how hard and how fast our kids play. And we're going to call the calls that they can execute to the best part of their ability. So that's probably the biggest thing. I don't want to say, maybe that's not overlooking anything, but that's the biggest thing that I have to challenge myself with, is don't put too much on, man. Make sure the kids play fast and can play hard.
Sure. I feel like that's almost every DC in the country,
It probably is.
We're playing with the offensive guys, like, here's what we're running and we're going to do it. And they can figure that shit out on that end.
Yeah. I mean, it will. And what's crazy, offenses nowadays, you're going to see stuff you've never seen.
Right.
And so are my guys going to be able to adjust to that faster, doing what we always do, or doing it for the new call each week? And then the other thing, which is crazy, this is crazy to me. There's not a lot of offenses that when they have success with some plays, they don't come back to it. I mean, I'll spend a whole halftime adjustment going over like, hey man, guys, they ran this thing twice and they had some yards on, and then we won't see it again. And it blows my mind. So that because of the so much variety on offense, man, I want to keep our guys simple so they're at least playing fast, playing hard.
Sure. We played when I was at Ashland and I was a GA. We played Chuck Martin, who's at Miami of Ohio head coach. Now I was at Grand Valley State at the time. They would just run 4 verts every damn play. And if you didn't stop them, they would run it the next play. And then they'd run it the next play. And they got 12 and they would just run it all damn day. Right. So he's a guy who does do that.
I don't want 4 verts all day. I can't. I'll be back there just biting my teeth. Nuts. I see 4 verts all the time.
And they were a team that had stupid talent for that level, like stupid talent. So, stop them, figure it out, and nobody did. Or it'd be outside zone, like outside zone versus crazy stuff. Yeah. So, and for you guys, we talk about different offenses. Will you go Houston? I think it's Texas State and then Army week 3, right?
Yeah.
Different things, right?
We get a little bit different stuff, and then Tennessee right after that.
And Tennessee, right? Yeah.
No big deal going to Rocky Top.
Yeah.
Geez. But yeah, those are 4 games that all 4 be tough. All 4 be very tough. Houston, obviously, they do a great job of coaching, have a great offense. Texas State, they're going to have a new scheme and a new coordinator, new coaches. They're going to be fired up. And then you got Army doing their triple option stuff. And then you go up to Tennessee and they go faster than the speed of light. They snap it every 2 seconds, it feels like. So it'll be a fun challenge, but, our kids will be up for it.
And that's what I always loved about defense. Those are 4 different types of offenses. You guys on your offensive side at UTSA will run basically the same offense every week, those 4 weeks, where you're game planning totally different things each week.
Yep.
That's why you gotta love defense.
I'm telling you, man. I tell you what's crazy too, Pat, is I was talking to some high school coaches. We just got back from the THSCA convention.
Yep.
I coached high school ball for 2 years as well. And it's even crazier in high school because you still got people running wing T. Then you got 22 personnel teams. I mean, it's even crazier in school having all sorts of different offenses to plan for. So it's defensive life,
Yep, is what it is. And I know you coached a little bit in high school. I think receivers, linebackers 1 year, something like that, right?
Yeah, I kind of dabble with the receivers a little bit, but most of the time, linebackers, safeties is what I've done.
Why? And I know you played linebacker, right, in college?
I did. Yeah, I know it doesn't look like it, but I played linebacker.
Sure. How did you get into the safety? Because you've coached safeties for, most of your career.
When I was at GA, Todd Graham at Tulsa, the first year he put me with the D lineman. And so I worked with the nose guards because we ran a 3 down front. The second year he put me with the linebackers. And I worked with Coach Patterson there with the linebackers a little bit. And then my last year, he put me in the back end. And our back end at Tulsa, there was 3 safeties because we ran the odd stack. And so he actually let me coach the nickel hybrid field safety type guy. And then I'd still got to listen to what he was doing in the back end with the other 2. So when I started learning the back end and all the ins and outs of it, I really enjoyed it because I did play high school. I mean, I played high school, obviously but I played quarterback in high school. And so the communication, the leadership part, kind of being in charge of things, it was mostly at linebacker when I played in college and kind of linebacker my first started coaching, but then it started transitioning with the safeties. They did most of the communication because the offenses started changing. Things were spread apart, all the motions, the shifts. Well, linebackers, they don't see all that as much. So it became now a safety-oriented communication defense versus linebackers. And I've always enjoyed being back there where I could kind of control or at least teach or talk to that safety who was in charge of all that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. I bet, you work all 3 levels there as a GA, like how incredibly beneficial that was to you and many years later when you became a DC.
Unbelievable. I found out real quick that I was not near as smart as I thought. I played college ball and I was a pipsqueak, couldn't run very fast, wasn't very strong. I was just an average athlete, but I was able to get by because I felt like I played fast because I was fairly smart. And so going into coaching, I thought, oh man, this ain't gonna be that hard. I'm a pretty smart player and I'll be a coach and be easy. Oh shoot. I freaking didn't have a clue.
Yeah. How did you even get into coaching? How did that happen?
I worked FCA right out of college for 2 years, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, loved it, enjoyed it, had a great boss. And then as I was doing that kind of started where you talked about that linebacker receiver. I started helping a team there in Enid, Oklahoma with Mark Boyd, and he let me kind of help coach. Now, I wasn't there every day because I still had my FCA job, but I'd show up maybe usually once, sometimes twice during the week. And then I was able to travel with him to games on Friday nights. And so I really enjoyed that. And after 2 years of doing FCA and a little bit of that, he said, Jess, you need to get into coaching. And I said, man, I felt the same thing because I miss it. I love it. And then so luckily my dad had a family friend that knew the defensive coordinator, Todd Graham at Tulsa, who they just got hired. Coach Crackdorf just got hired. And I called him up. I probably called him, I bet 20 times. And he finally returned a call. And then he said, yeah, well, meet me July 3rd. I said, okay. So I go down to Tulsa July 3rd. This is a funny story now. I get in the office. I said, hey, I'm here to meet with Todd Graham. And I said, okay. And then Todd comes out there. He said, hey, come in my office right here. And he said, sit down right here. And then he left. I bet he was gone for 2 or 3 hours. I'm just sitting in his office, just like this, looking around, doing nothing.
Yeah.
And he came back after me. It's probably 2 hours. I always exaggerate it the longer I tell the story, but it's probably a good solid 2. And he come in there and he goes, "Boy, I tell you what, you sure are persistent." And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I really want to do this." And he said, "Okay, well, let me just tell you something. I don't have anything. We have no paid positions." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll volunteer." He said, "You'll work for free." I said, "I'll work for free as long as I can." "Well, shoot, I ain't going to turn down free work." He says, "All right, get back here in 1 week." I said, "Yes, sir." So I came back in a week, ended up I busted my tail. There's one thing that I will say that I feel like I do a good job of is my work ethic. I have really good work ethic. So I worked my tail off. And after the summer was over, he just said, "Look, man, we're going to find a way to keep you." He said, "What we're going to do is we're going to give the GA that came, he's going to get the stipend, but he can't get into school. We want you to get into school. So he's going to get the stipend, but we're going to pay for your school." Well, shoot, as soon as I told my mom and my dad that I was getting a master's for free at the University of Tulsa, they're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, we'll help you. What you need? You need some food money? They'll give me food money." So my parents were able to help me out. And I did that for 1 semester. And then after that semester, I ended up getting all of the stipend and then the school. So that's kind of my start in college football.
That's great. I feel like a lot of people have crazy stories like that. Matt Mayer was on here from USF a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how he would send 30 straight emails, and just like because if the coach had opened the email, he'd seen this Matt Mayer dude. Why does he keep emailing me? Like, and he actually got a job on a cold intro, which almost never happened, right? Like a full-time position.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Do you think Todd did that for 2 hours? Was that intentional, or do you think he got caught out?
No, I think it's intentional. No, Todd, the one thing I know about Todd Graham is he's very intentional about everything he does. He really is. And I think he really wanted to see what I was all about, and I don't blame him. Would I do that? I'm not saying I would do that, but understand why. And then I think he understood that when I stayed around, and then after that first month, that's why he hired me. He gave me my first position job at Rice when he took the head coaching job. He came back to Tulsa. He brought me back. He's always, taken care of me and been there for me.
Now, when you're looking to hire guys, I assume you're not having them sit in the office for 2 hours, but when you're looking to put together staff, what do you look for in a guy that's going to work with you?
2 main things. Number one is their work ethic. And that type of work ethic that's never going to be satisfied. I don't ever want a guy, and this is what Tyler would always tell me. He would always give me a job. I never came back to him and said, "Well, yeah, I couldn't find a way to do it." I found a way. Sometimes I went to Kinko's and spent my own money to make sure that I was getting this job done for him that he wanted. So that kind of work ethic, that drive to just get it done no matter what. And then the second thing is, and really this is the most important, is how good of a person are they? Our staff, Pat, we have good men, and I work for a head coach that, in my opinion, I know everybody says this about their head coach, but I can say it and feel good about saying it, is a great man and who is the best to work for. And so when you can surround yourself with good people, then that's when a lot of trust can happen. And when you can trust people and not have to micromanage people, in my opinion, that's when you can really elevate to high levels, and everybody can be at their best. Everybody takes ownership in it. But you have to be able to trust those guys. And to trust those guys, you have to know they're good dudes you've hired. Like, there can't be any snakes that are trying to get my job or trying to sneak around and get other people's jobs. That happens in this, man, that's happened to me. That happens in this profession, and that, I don't want to be around that stuff.
No, and you talk about Coach Traylor. I would hear stuff. If somebody felt like I don't like Coach Traylor for this reason or that reason, they would tell me I'm not affiliated with you guys at all, right? I've never heard a bad word about him. We've had great guys on from your staff. We had mentioned Sadiq, D-line coach, Julian, your running backs coach, has been on. They've been incredible. Seem like great men too. Great coaches from what we see here, and if I've never heard, and I've talked to many people about him specifically, Coach Traylor, and everybody says to a T, good dude, or something positive in general.
Yeah, great dude. Real, very genuine. That's probably another thing about him. When you see him in an interview, like we was at the THSAA convention, and he was on this panel. He was on 2 different panels. and talking about some different things. And then all these high school coaches that come up to you and say, man, your dude, he was a good dude, man. He's funny. He's this and that. And I said, look, that really is who he is. He's not putting on a show. He's not trying to be someone different on a stage versus off a stage. That is literally who he is.
You got to appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
That way, as we know.
No doubt, brother. When you can find people you like and you enjoy working for them, and they make your quality of life as good as it can be for a coach, shoot, man, you got me forever.
Sure. What do you think makes you different from a coaching standpoint, either DC or safeties wise, outside of work ethic? I know you talked work ethic, but what makes you a different kind of coach?
I've always felt this, and then a lot of my players and coaches tell me I feel like teaching. I really believe I'm a good teacher. I believe that I can. It's whatever kid you give me, I'm gonna find a way I'm gonna find out their learning style, and I'm gonna teach them in the classroom, on the field. I love to teach. I really do. I love to teach, and I feel like that's probably my strongest point in my career.
Were you always that way? Like starting that young, right?
I would say this: I've always had probably a way to find ways to make things easy, because that's how I studied in college. I was always finding the most efficient way to study, the most efficient way to do things, how to make things easy, how to understand things easier. And so probably as a coach, I've probably been like that. And I've gotten a lot better, obviously, at my teaching. But I would say at least I started out at least having the understanding of how to be a good teacher.
Sure. You mentioned finding the easy way in college. I think my easy way in college was like, how do I do the minimum to get that thing? Like,
yes, that's right.
Let me get that B. How can I get a B or a C if I need to?
Right. I know. How do I get the grade I want?
Yes, exactly.
And I necessarily didn't want the A+, but right. Certain grade.
Sure. Cool. I always like to end on this one. Best coaching advice that you've gotten.
Ooh, that I've gotten.
Yes.
Be yourself. That's probably the best one I've gotten, is be yourself, because it's really interesting when you watch certain people that they try to emulate others. Just be yourself. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have done that a few times in my career, maybe act like a certain coach. And the more I'm myself, the more my players trust me, the more my players open their arms to me, because they know, like, okay, he's a real dude. He's not pretending. So be yourself.
Yeah. And I get that sometimes that can be tough, right? Especially when you're a young guy, you're a DC. Now it's different than when you were a young coach coming up and you want to be like what other guys on staff are, not like necessarily personality, but you're trying to fit in with what the culture is and what they're doing. So I understand that sometimes certainly there's a time and a place to fit into culture, but also be yourself. Right.
Well, and I would say this, I'm glad you brought that up. Like for us, I'm going to always be myself, but I've always got to fit in with our head coach's culture while being myself, so there is some fit in stuff, but you got to be yourself while you are fitting into that culture.
Totally get that. Well, Coach, I appreciate the time. Thanks again. Good luck this season. 6 weeks away. Can't wait for football to start again.
You bet, man. Thank you. I appreciate you.